All right, all right, all right. Yes, yes, yes. We are back for another open court discussion live in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is my co-host, the Big Bad Wolf, Herb Lewis.
Oh, that said y'all thought my brother was better looking than me. Well, I got a problem with that, so I'm gonna cook tonight.
Okay, all right. Panel, you know what to do if you want in. Join us. We look forward to seeing you. Recap from this past Monday's broadcast. We had an open talk session covering multiple topics. Feel free to watch the replay on the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. As usual, we have some reels to highlight segments of the show on Facebook, TikTok, IG, YouTube. But tonight, let's shift our focus Monday, April 22nd, to a very important topic. We will be discussing the future of education. We will cover how education has progressed, digressed from religious teachings, vocational learning, online learning to potential augmented reality, gamified education. And I know some of you like, well, wait a minute, gamified. These kids already play too many games. And but stay tuned. Stay tuned. Um, Also, student ownership, innovative learning spaces, meaning there's going to be times in the future where they're going to have like couches and stuff like lounges and big screen TVs, and each kid probably will have like something bigger than a regular tablet or regular computer. They might have like 32 inches on desk and things of that nature. So those is going to be some crazy times, but that's coming. Real world applications that maybe instead of learning in the classroom, they might be out and about at a job. Um, and historically, you may have a certain kids that sign up for like the work study internship program, but probably in the future, probably most of the kids they'll be going out somewhere getting some field experience. So this topic has an impact on everyone. So make sure you stop by and add your 5 cent. Need more than 2 cents. How about five? Please like and share our video. Tell a friend to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. Right now we're at 865 subs, 35 away from the next milestone. Let's go, people. Let's go and get this done so we can move on to the next one. So, all right, we here. A lot going on. Um, I'll just start off with my what's going on with me. I had the opportunity to co-host or facilitate cocktails plus convos Saturday with Paige Hines Cheatham, the one on the relationship expert relationship coach that was on here about a month ago, and some about those live conversations, man. Something about those live conversations is revigorating, and also it's kind of like you have nowhere to go. You're right there. You make a point. You say something, and I'm gonna give you an example. Then I'm gonna pass it on to her. So some young lady has said that she was with a guy for like uh 4 years, and she said she was in the process of buying the house. He kind of went along with her step by step with the process. She is making more money than him. He had horrible credit. And then I guess because he went through the process step by step, helping her figure out, where they're going to move and looking at different houses and whatever else he did. But then he wanted to know why she didn't put him on the deed. And he felt some kind of way. Like, I've been with you. You've been okay with me making less than you, but now you're not going to put me on the deed. So a lot of people that got them going like, oh, why was she put him on the deed? And they was like, first of all, why was you with him? Because she said his credit score was 400. It so that kind of set set things ablaze. And I kind of said, so why have him go through the process? Why have him go through all of that, knowing damn well you really felt some kind of way about the money he made in his credit score? So of course he probably felt like at any given moment I'm a lame duck. Eh, she could put me out and do this or that, but she was playing it smart. Like I'm not, they wasn't married yet, so it was a lot to that. And we were kind of running short on time, but this the power of those live discussions that once she put that out, oh, everybody had something to say. So you can hide on live streaming, you can hide, but when you're in face to face and you make a comment, oh, you better be ready for some rebuttal. So that was cool. So I enjoyed that. Um, they're gonna do it bigger and better next time. So, and me and her been a part of those in Niagara Falls, putting it the sip and dip, and then the other things like once somebody you face to face, you have nowhere to hide. And you have the mic in your hand and you say something, people be ready. They be ready. So I always appreciate that platform. So hopefully more of those will come as well. Okay, Gavin, I see you. We're gonna pull you up in here. What's going on, Greg? You said we just going to discuss where education is headed, or are we going to discuss how it is failing? Well, headed, failing. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. Probably won't focus on no specific area, but talk a little bit about everything because educate that's a handful. This subject is a handful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, Herb, what's good with you?
Oh man, I got my honeydew list. The only thing about my list is there is no one telling me what to do, so I get to do it at my leisure. That's the beautiful thing about having a home and being able to do things at your leisure. But other than that, man, I'm emerging from the debacle that was 2023. Some bumps in the road, some potholes. Matter of fact, I got a funny story. I was riding my bike to work last week. It was raining. Now, I know better than to ride through a puddle of standing water because usually that means there's a pothole there. Yeah, me and my almighty wisdom, what do? I turn into the parking lot, hit the pothole, and I go head over the handlebars. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I
Wow.
I go head over the handlebars. And it's raining too. It's raining. So I hit the ground. Man, I had time to flinch, blink, nothing. Handles, boom. But the good thing about it was I hit my forearm flush, and I didn't, at least at first, I didn't, feel any pain, no damage. Towards the end of my work shift, my toes were hurt, and I think they may have been hyperextended. I had some shoulder soreness. But other than that, I emerged unscathed, shall I say. So I think I'm going to nickname myself Timex. I'll take a licking and keep on ticking, and I ain't trying to be perverted, you little perverts out there.
You know what I'm going
This
to
like
call
the
you?
second time in like 3 years.
I'm going to call you adult training wheels. You need some damn adult training wheels, probably.
Because this is like the second time in like 3 years, three plus years that I've actually had a major fall, something like that. Last time I was walking up a curb in wintertime and my foot happened to slip off the curb, and when I hit, the bursa sac in my elbow blew up from my wrist all the way up to my upper humerus was all black and blue, and I never experienced that kind of damage, to my body just from a simple fall. And I've played sports, I've been hit, but that was just a different type of contact. But other than that, man, I got no complaints, man. I'm doing reasonably well. Getting back on the weight loss treadmill as it is. So hopefully by the end of this summer, say September, I'll be down to my goal of 210 pounds, which is about 65 pounds from where I am. And also, I have the first draft of the book completed. I'll send that to you. I'll get your email, David. I'll send that to you. I've sent it to a couple other people. I'm waiting on their response. I had a coworker read it, and he was like, "Yeah, you got something here." So hopefully, I'm gonna meet that deadline. What was it, July 15th? So things are looking up.
Somewhere around in July.
The book,
All
is
right,
it
all
only
right.
hardcover, or are you going to do an ebook version?
I'm leaning towards original art cover as much as it can be. I don't want to give away too much in terms of the art cover. Let's just say it's going to have something to do with the number 100, a question mark, and mazes. That's as much as I can give out right now because I'm gonna have my man work on it with me and see
Is it
what
going to
he
be?
can come up.
No, what I'm asking is it going to be? Are you only going to sell it in the format of hardcover, or also going to, or paperback, or are you going to do sell it in the format of ebook as well?
You know what? I'm definitely is going to be hard copy. I'm not sure about ebook. I'm actually messaging someone about that. My only concern with the ebook is pricing, and I haven't settled on a price scale for the book. I'm looking somewhere between $12.95 and $14. I think that is good enough for what I've done. Now, the value that someone may get may far exceed that, and if that's the case, then I'm more than happy to take that loss. But I think that's a fair price point for this particular type of work. And as I'm looking at what I've written in there and the possible questions that's going to come up, I might even entertain private consultations for people that have some questions or they want to do some things. So I'm not closing off any avenue. I'm going to leave them open so I don't potentially curtail any type of revenue stream that could potentially come of this.
Okay.
I can actually write that book today, Greg. But it will violate my NDA, so I can't really do that. I would have to come up with a lot of fictitious names and give them my propensity to scour the world, as one would might say. I could do that very easily, and it might be a book idea. Who knows? Like David said, hey, be careful what you say. You might end up in a book.
There's a lot of people in my book. They just don't know they're in there, but there's a lot of them in there. Just don't know. That's what happened when you don't read through anything.
Yeah.
You buy and support, but you didn't read it. Oh, we said, I thought that was the title.
No, the title, Amanda, the title is going to be Dating Savant, 100 Questions for Your Future. That's the title. Actually, you know what, Amanda, if you inbox me your email address, I will send you a copy so you can read it. And she's one of my college people. Shout out to the ELP program, 1993. Okay.
All right. What's going on with you, Gavin?
Yeah, not much. I got in from work about an hour ago, so just taking life easy. But I like the topic I saw when I got the notification. I said, "Ooh, this is something I like to kind of listen to." And I don't know if I could give my 2 cents or 5 cents or 2 bits, whatever. But I'm glad I'm here. Thanks, guys.
Well, we appreciate you
No
up here,
problem.
man.
No problem.
And you're always free to add whatever it is you deem important, because and David's going to cover this too. But when we hear the term education, a lot of people have a perspective of what that means. And far be it for me to tell anybody what education means. I may not be in it because this is something I had a a little bit of ta-ta-ta about 2 weeks ago with somebody. We were talking about honorary degrees and things of that nature. So education comes in many forms from many different sources. There's the only one thing I would say about education that is consistent is hopefully someone is there to teach and someone is there to learn. As long as those two things, as far as I'm concerned, are met, then the world should become a much better place with each progressive generation.
Well, from my understanding, when it comes to education, like the word itself, it comes, I believe, from the Latin word educo or educader, which translated into English or modern English means to draw from within.
Okay.
And so, with that in mind, and what I've seen or what we've all noticed due to the lockdown and the pandemic, and a lot of kids are now being taught from home or remotely, or however you want to fashion it or refer to it as, all this time where our kids getting educated or indoctrinated, just teaching them things by rote, just to remember, but not truly think. And when you know how to think and research, then you're able to educate yourself,
Mhm.
which is supposed to be education. That's what education is, to teach someone to review, research, and think. And well, I think you mentioned a couple of times, sir, throughout various media broadcasts, critical thinking skills.
Mhm.
I hope overall for our children that have been going through the pandemic, that had to be at home remotely, maybe our their parents and the school system that in, whether it's um, private, public, or what's the other school system that kind of came popular now?
Charter.
So yeah, charter. That they realize, you know what, this we're standing on the beginning, crosswords or something. Can we should now look to truly educate?
See, the thing with that is, and I only can speak for my district, my schools. During that time, they had it all. The kids, our students, they've had, their own personal computers in their possession for years before the pandemic, because the superintendent at that time had a vision, young guy, innovative, and wanted every student to be able to have technology. But the thing is, during the pandemic, they ain't do shit. These kids ain't do nothing. They that was just time that was just wasted. They didn't they didn't do what was intended to do, and many of them, they didn't come on camera. They were in class, obviously with their computers in bed. Well, most of them, they would just not show their face, so, and probably mute the whole class discussion and playing. But you always have the percentage that was on point and was doing what they needed to do, but a lot of them didn't. And even though it was an opportunity for, if parents were home, to kind of oversee it, but then again, some parents had work, and they were working online as well, so they couldn't monitor the whole aspect of it. So I don't, for me, from what I gather, it don't seem like didn't it didn't work out too well for many of the students, because they need structure, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
and as much as they complain about teachers and they talk too much and they don't want to hear about back in the days or this and that, but that's what they need. Even transitioning from elementary to middle school is a big task, because they're used to being, unless when they go to their specials, gym and music, but they're used to
Yeah.
being with the same teacher lining up one in a single file with two lines, and that teacher is guiding them and doing everything for them. Then when they get to middle school, they have all this independence, and they travel around. They have a certain amount of time to get to the classroom. But one of the things I realized as a counselor going in there, they don't understand, like in elementary, when the teachers say, "Oh, you're assigned for math, you're assigned 1 through 30, all even numbers, or whatever the
Mhm.
case. This is your homework." A lot of times, middle school, they don't say that. You already know what you need to do, and if you don't finish it in the class, unless the teachers say it, which I don't know if they say it or not, but when I talk to the kids, they're like, "Well, we don't have homework." That's what they tell their parents. We don't
Yeah,
have homework.
oh,
Yeah, you
that's
have
important.
homework. When you look at your grades and you got E's and D's and you're missing assignments, that would be homework. What do you think? How do you think this is going to get completed? It's just not going to disappear. So, a lot of the sixth grade parents, they get frustrated with that because they like, well, they always tell me they don't have homework. And I tell them, oh, if you look on their Schoology report, and that's the platform for the grade reporting, I said, and they're missing assignments, they got homework. Oh, they got plenty of it in each subject. So that's just
Well,
one little layer
but then
as far as
that's
that.
all that's by the fault of the parents. Really, you gonna believe your child in sixth grade does not have any homework when you remember back in the day when you was in sixth grade yourself? Come on, that sounds like such like an adult cop out.
Well, that's part of what Greg is referencing when he um or at least I believe when he asked where's education heading and where's it failing now. And I've said this before, and I'm going to reiterate. I know I will sound like a scratch CD. A child's education system consists of three things: home, school, and the community. With one of those compromised, the student can still do well and pass. When any two of those become compromised, whether male, female, well to do or not, impoverished or wealthy, that student is at an increased risk of failure up to the point of being a dropout. Now, that's not necessarily due to the fault, and I want people to understand something. When I say fault, I'm talking about a lack of responsibility. So that's not due to the fault of that particular thing. However, the responsibility is always there so that the student is at least assured a chance of doing well academically. That's what one of the federal guidelines is equal opportunities. But equal opportunity for what? Because what's equal for me may be subpar for somebody else. And what's subpar for somebody else might be the world for another individual. And this is the problem that we have in the United States of America when so much is expected of teachers, administrators, and other staff that we forget about the other components that are involved. You can't let's shift from education for a moment so I can use this example. An engine and a motor in a car. What's more important, the engine or the motor Some people will say the engine. Some people will say the motor. Well, if you don't have a motor, you can't start the engine. But if the engine is no good, it doesn't matter if you can start it. This is where we are currently with education. So, and I'm gonna start back here, and I'm gonna address something you said earlier about the indoctrination. There's a quote by Voddie T. Beckham. Voddie is Voddie. Beckham is Baucham. And he said this: Don't be surprised when you send your kids off to Caesar and they become Romans. Shout out to Dane for posting that clip in the video. I thought it was very succinct. Essentially, what we have now, and you mentioned this too, Gavin, is we have kids that are being taught information, but they're not taught how to arrive at that information. They're not taught why something happens or how did we come to this point. This is why you have so many people that question so many things that are related to science. And I'm not here to delve into conspiracy theories. If somebody wants to have a conspiracy theory, bless them. Run with it. Run a marathon. Finish first. But this is one of the reasons why we have these types of things, is because somewhere along the path, somebody decided to zig instead of zag. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, except when it goes against what has been practiced, preached, and verified through millennia. We got people out here that question gravity, but if they get in the plane, guess what they don't want to happen? Yes, Dr. Dunbar, the Prussian educational school system. They don't want that plane to crash. Well, damn, if gravity doesn't exist, why would that plane crash? And see, this is the conundrum.
Would you worry?
Say it again.
Why would you worry? If gravity doesn't exist, you feel gravity doesn't exist, okay, and you're up the stairs in the plane, why would you worry?
Because they're forced to address the idiocy at which they think. And it's at that particular point in time that they conform to what everybody else is saying. Okay, you know what? Maybe there's something to this little gravity thing. But, you know, and this gets into another aspect of the educational system. You talked about private, parochial, charter schools, but there's something that is, I believe, that is making a very, very slow comeback. And that is community style education. What I mean by that is this: people who are homeschooling and people who are sending their children to people who know that they have the ability to teach, to have their kids homeschool. And that allows a couple of different things. One, it allows for hands-on teaching, more so than you would get in an average traditional classroom. That student, whether it's male or female, is in a situation to where the structure is without a doubt there. There's going to be no nonsense. There won't be any wasted time. In addition to that, they're going to get things that they normally wouldn't get in a traditional school setting. They're not going to have to worry about being bullied, being bothered, being teased, because whoever's there, you all know each other. So that, if it happens, is good nature. So you understand how to deal with it. It doesn't bruise your ego. It doesn't rob that kid of the ability to feel safer. And we know how much safety is when it comes to elementary school students, up until, and Dave will verify this, up into middle school students. High school students, not so much, because they tend to be a little bit more independent. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't suffer from it, because they do. I've seen fights break out in high school because somebody says something, somebody looked at somebody wrong. And it's like, that's all it takes to set you off, if somebody looks at you wrong. So I mean, you know, and the other thing I want to address too is this: what we call education is a societal situation that society needs to sit down and say, what do we want? A, from our educational system, and B, for our kids. Because what this country looks like now, in 20 years, it is not going to look the same. You know, we talk about the lack of diversity in the teaching profession. How do you think that is going to impact people who are coming from Latin American countries where Spanish is their first language. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how English is taught now, especially for people who are not native English speakers, they have classes that are called ESL, which stands for English as a Second Language. These people are being taught, in some regards, in their native tongue, as well as simultaneously learning English. So they can't go back home and get help because more often than not, their parents don't speak the language. So they have two strikes against them already. Like I said, home, school, and the community. The school is doing what it can, but the school can only help in as much as the student is present.
So let me
Go ahead, Nick.
add on to that piece. So yeah, so we call it the ESOL program, and there's only well, they're going to change it up next year. It's all school. Before they had isolated certain a certain amount of schools in each area of Baltimore County had ESOL centers. So those kids, when they come in, or they coming from El Salvador or different countries, they get tested, and then they would go to the ESOL center where they had those teachers that would teach them, and they had programs set up for them. The problem was some of the parents would say, "Well, I don't want my kid to go because it wasn't the neighborhood community school." So it would be maybe instead of being the school being 5 minutes away, and maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes away. So some parents like, well, they might not be able to get there if it's an emergency situation. So they would say, I'd rather for them we'll waive our rights. But granted, not many of them could speak English. So when they come in, a lot of the kids are interpreting stuff unless we get if they speak in Spanish, unless we get a teacher or call the hotline for foreign language, then they would interpret. But a lot of it is the kids will be conveying stuff back and forth. You know how that is sometimes. If that's the case, especially when it comes to discipline, them kids, they're not going to tell. They're not going to tell the parent unless somebody calls and they have somebody that's going to interpret everything. And then sometimes, throughout the day, people are busy. They kind of things. It don't happen that way. So those kids kind of get off, and their parents don't always get all the information that they should. So, but now every school is going to have, I guess, an ESOL component into it. So we'll see how that pans out. But it's it's a lot to it because a lot of them they just literally begin to the country. They show up. Okay, this is the school that my child is supposed to go to, and they're trying to establish a new life and got to deal with all those different barriers. And so it's so much to it that things are not the same how it used to be. We got a whole lot of other stuff thrown in education that wasn't necessarily there before.
Yeah, exactly. Brother David, you're a counselor. What are the grades that you mostly deal with in regards to the students that are in your program?
We the way we do it is we travel with our students. So right now, currently, I got sixth graders. So next year I have seventh. Then the following year I have eighth. In high school, most high schools do it by alphabet. That way you still have you could travel with your kids each grade level because it's alphabet, but no one gets stuck with saying I want all 12th graders, because that means that they would have to write all the recommendation letters, do all the college stuff. So that's not fair to them. And some of the schools, they do have a college counselor, but before they hired the college counselor position, no one was just awarded. Everybody had a ninth graders. They had 10th, 11th, and 12th to kind of balance it out. But right now I have sixth graders.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because I remember when I was a kid, and I'm a '70s baby, so I you know how you remember your teachers from, one teacher more than another, from like in elementary school, high school, and so forth and so forth.
Uh-huh.
In elementary, when I was in elementary school, my teacher who I remember was my fourth grade teacher, Miss Arzola, Harlem, Puerto Rican teacher. She was tough. She was drill sergeant tough. But she was a dead ringer for Linda Carter.
Ooh.
Had long hair like Crystal Gale. So what we all remembered about Miss Arzola was this. Two things. She was tough when it came to math, and when it came to what was called reading comprehension. Math, everybody hand up your if you had a pocket calculator, back in the day, little pocket calculators. This is her class. That became her property. Hand it up.
Oh.
She would lock it in her phone. And we're gonna do timetables. You gotta do it mentally. She wanted you to be able to know how to think and calculate mentally. And when it came to the reading comprehension, she had what we had called definitions. Spell a word by its proper syllables, then give the definition, and then show how you can use it in a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Brother David, from what you've seen in the elementary school students that you deal with and also their teachers, are the teachers nowadays that strict to make sure that the kids are able to critically think, or they just allow them to do everything on a iPad or notepad or whatever?
Well, for me, some of the stuff definitely is, I think, not how we grew up doing it. Maybe because they have all access to all this, these calculators, the devices, and stuff like that. So they have access to Google a lot of stuff, but I always ask, they don't have spelling tests like we used to have. That was like a weekly thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, you would have the word, you would write out the definition, put it in a sentence, and then eventually learn how to spell the word. So that was like clockwork, repeatedly, week after week after week. And I've made reference to this before. The great John Wooden said, teaching is 4 components. First thing is demonstration. You showing the kids how to do it. Then they imitate what you do. So maybe more so if we say like math, if they're doing math, then it's correction, correcting them on what they do wrong, and then repetition, drilling in point after point after point. So, and sort of like, and I could see what the John Wooden, because that's how you in basketball. Sometimes if you're playing basketball sports, you might be tired, like, oh, we're doing the same play over and over and over and over, and that may take damn near all of the practice. You working on one offense, and you're doing it over and over and over. You're trying to then you're trying to work it against certain defenses, but you're drilling in that information. And the same thing happens with teaching. You have to hone in on those points and give kids an opportunity to see what they can do or cannot do. So I think I don't think it's going in depth like how we did. And remember also that these, again, we are, one of the words that's been popular over the last 15, 20 years, teaching to the test. So they're teaching to prepare kids for a state exam, whereas we had our exams, but teachers wasn't really in the rush. They could spend as much time as they want, and they felt that their kids, got it. and felt like, okay, we can move on to the next. I feel solid in this particular concept area, but now they got to keep it moving and keep it moving, and I don't know how much these kids really retain.
So,
Again, so with that
nutshell,
too, but keep that in mind too, that they again have devices, they do have cell phones and stuff like that. So
take it
they're
away.
told,
Lock it in
if
the desk.
what did you say?
Take it away. Lock it in the drawer.
Yeah.
No.
Sometimes that becomes a power struggle too. I mean, you can they're told to do that, but that's only as good as how strong the teacher is. Some teachers they know
Yeah.
not to do it, but if you got a weak teacher, they're gonna be running amok all over the place. Pretty much, if you got 40-minute classes, 45 minutes classes, maybe 25, 30 minutes is just getting them settled in. The next day you got 20 minutes to go, and then the bell ring and they on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So
But
just to put it
that's a
in a
weak
nutshell,
teacher.
right? Just to put it back in a nutshell with John Wooten. So education is demonstration, imitation, correction, and then repetition.
Yes,
Got it. Wow,
that's the art
that's
of teaching.
the art of teaching. That's powerful. Thank you.
What else? What else?
Yep. So,
Yeah. So
but that,
Dr. Anwar
and
said
yeah, go ahead.
some of these kids flip out when they get their phones taken away. Oh, do they ever? Do they ever?
And
You
see,
have to
that's
call
the thing I don't
administration to
understand.
handle it.
Yes, and this is where the parents can set that template, and some don't. Me personally speaking, I first of all, I'm gonna tell you about what I would do as a parent before anyone says you don't have any kids you don't know. Bullshit. My child would not have a cell phone until they're 16. Why? Because there should be nowhere that I don't know where you are until you get to the age where I believe you are accountable for the things that you do. I have rarely, and I mean rarely, encountered a child or a kid, male or female, who was younger than 16 that knew what the hell they were doing all the time. That was our generation where we were latchkey kids, so we understood the streets.
Hello.
We knew what danger meant, and we knew how to stay out of danger.
We were latchkey kids before they coined the term.
Correct. So I'm not. My kid is not going to get that kind of freedom unless they've earned it. And then for a child of mine to have earned the right to have a cell phone before they reach the age of 16, they're going to have to demonstrate some things to my satisfaction. To hell with anyone else. It's my satisfaction.
But now you just declared war, brother Herb, because now you know, yeah, you're raising your kid that way. I'm raising my kid that way. David is raising his kid that way. But the kids in their class, but just the entire school, woo! So now you got a battle. You're the field general, you're the MacArthur, you're the Patton, and you're the Sergeant Foley because you got to come in from all sides.
Well, but see, this is and this is a component. I want people to pay attention. This is a component of how you teach your child to deal with peer pressure and outside forces who want them to do something different. Most parents won't stand in the breach, they will fold. If the parents can't make a stand on what they believe in, then that child is compromised. And that's what people do not understand. As a parent, when I say go to bed at 9 o'clock, I don't care how you feel. To a certain degree, I don't care what you say, but your ass is going to get in that bed at 9 o'clock. I guarantee that. If not, there's going to be some consequences and some repercussions, and I am going to meet them out to how I see fit. And this is what people need to, this is what, in my estimation, this is what parents need to get back to. They need to stop letting kids run the household. You're a child. Stay in the child's place. That don't mean you can't speak. That don't mean you don't have an opinion. That means that opinion has as much weight as I give it. You say you want to stay up to 10 o'clock? Guess what? I don't care. Guys in the bed. Because the moment I let you stay up to 10 o'clock, and David can vouch for this, you can get in class, you can be sleeping. Your grades are going to start slipping. And when your grades start slipping, that's when I get the pimping. And you take that however you want to. I don't give a damn if you don't like it. I'm going to lay the pimp hand down. The pimp hand means I'm going to meter up some punishment. Period.
Yeah, they laugh at those at those curfews, and like I mentioned here before, when I go around in the beginning of the year, one of the questions I ask, what time do y'all go to bed? And this year I had sixth graders, and I was like, and I always ask them, I said, well, before y'all answer, you know what time I think y'all should go to bed. And they're like, oh, what time? And then I was like, shit, probably around 9. Like 9 o'clock. Like, who goes to bed at 9? I go to bed at 12. I go to bed at 1. I just had a sixth grader the other day came in. I was covering a class. He was like, man, I'm tired, man. I was on the phone with my boo all night long. And all I could do was just freaking laugh to myself like, this is out of control, man.
Sixth grader? No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. See, right there. And then another thing. All right, Brother Herb, back to you when you said, all right, you were not allowed to up to 10 o'clock. Here's a alternative. Would the exception be if you want to see up your wait, hold on, let me finish before you start shaking your
No,
head.
you can't. I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just saying no.
Okay. But they were studying something that you deemed like so completely, even if they're studying, it's just 9 o'clock, that's it. No
Want me to tell you
exception.
why? Want me to tell you why?
No. Yeah.
Because more than likely they didn't utilize the time they had before 9 o'clock to get the job done. You don't think about it.
Gotcha.
As a person who's on an assembly line, you don't have the luxury to stop the assembly line because you're working too slow. They get your ass off the assembly line. Same thing with academia.
Here. We'll talk. Go ahead.
Same thing with academia. If you don't keep up with let's go to college. If a professor issues you 3 chapters and you only get through 1, you out of luck because the lessons become cumulative. Case in point again. If we playing with Legos and you want to build a 3-story house, but you're in a competition with 2 other people to build a 3-story house and they moving quicker than you, what you think you're gonna win?
No.
This is the lesson that people need to teach their children, especially now that we are in a global. Yes, absolutely. We're in a global market, so you don't have the opportunity to be lazy. Being pragmatic is not being lazy. Being pragmatic means you're doing things at a measured interval. And a lot of people get the two confused. Well, he's lazy. No, he's pragmatic. She's pragmatic. They're doing things at their own pace, but their pace will get the job done within the acceptable parameters of what has been set forth. So there's laziness, procrastination, then there's just pragmatic. People who procrastinate wait to the last moment and then they turn into piss poor performances. That's a problem too. Now, if you can work under pressure and you can do that and you turn in good stuff, then nobody can say anything to you. But most people don't. This is why most people, when they get a project that's due months from now, they don't wait because they realize that they're not pragmatic. They're not good managers of time. They say, if I don't get this done now and I wait till the last moment, I'm never going to get it done. This is why you have problems with classrooms and professions where there's groups of people who are tasked with working in a project because you get all different types of people with all different type of work styles. These groups aren't assembled for people who think alike, who work alike, who want to get something done. No, you got people who are procrastinators. Let's say procrastinators. Geez, just eluded me just that quick. People who are procrastinators, people who are pragmatic, and people who are just don't want to work. So that's not fair to everybody else when they have to pull more of the work burden than somebody else, because the work style dictates that. This is where the disharmony comes in. So you and we scale this back to elementary school, where kids are learning, like you said, definitions, basic things, multi-syllable words, and then you go to multi-syllabic words. All of a sudden now, because the kid didn't do their work with basic words, they have no hope or prayer of learning complicated words, word combinations, syllable combinations, words that are 6-7 letters long. Afternoon. Well, I never learned how to spell after, and noon means it's a compound word. There's a word that a third grader should actually be able to understand and possibly spell. But because in second grade they didn't learn to spell after, and they didn't learn to spell noon, they didn't learn to put them together, we can't pass them. We can't, well, with No Child Left Behind, we can pass them on. But when they're passed on because that's what the legislation says they can do. They don't want these kids back here being incorrigible to the next
migrants coming from not only South America, but from Eastern Europe.
Yes. So, I mean, like I said, man, there's a whole lot. I mean, the ESL component, and what David said about, the children, first generation Americans, if you will, translating for their parents, it's real. It's very real, because I feel cause at work. And I'm speaking to a kid that's about 7, 8, maybe 9 years old, and they're translating. And I'm like, why in the hell don't the adult talking now after dealing with it so much? I realized that the parents don't speak functional English. So you essentially have the kid who's leading that family, particularly when it comes to anything related to English. It's not necessarily dangerous, but it just isn't in the best fortunes of the kid, because that kid's gonna go ahead.
See, that's a double-edged sword, because again, now on the flip side, that kid will be able to understand the American way, translate it to their elders, and then when they grow up, they'll be able to help, because they know their community, and like especially the Eastern European migrants are coming over. Their sense of community is strong. So you're going to have those first American generation children who will develop a facility, an ability to understand, comprehend the English language better than American kids, specifically going to in the Black community.
Right.
And then they're going to complain. Well, those in the community, when they grow up, they complain, well, how he get this or whatever excuse, as opposed to, well, why didn't you study? Why did the parents encourage you to study like you did? You said, oh, 9 o'clock, you got it. When you come home, this is what you got to do to learn. Because you see that kid over there, whether they have a kid like that from the Eastern European bloc in their class or in their school or not, this is the world that you live in, my son, my daughter.
See, and we all see the clips, of people interviewing kids that are students that are just out of high school and some on college campuses, and they can't answer some very, very, what I deem very basic questions about whether it's geography, certain things about the Constitution, things that they should at least have a functional knowledge of. I'm not saying they should be able to sit up there and have a conversation with you, or any adult for that matter, on why things work the way they do, because most adults aren't capable of that. But that being said, a high school student should be able to tell me how many states the U.S. has, the names of certain landmarks or presidents or things of that nature. These are things that when we sat down, and this is another failing of, and not just the educational system, if you will, just the television programming. think about the TV shows we grew up watching:
Mhm.
Tic-Tac-Toe, Family Feud, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, Schoolhouse Rock, The Electric Company, Sesame Street. All of those shows, in one way or another, they taught.
$25,000 pyramid.
Yes, the questions that they asked weren't questions that were necessarily, you know, uh, uh, an illustration of how smart you were. They were illustration of the intelligence you have. And for people that don't understand the difference, intelligence is simply put having the ability to recall information and utilize it. That's intelligence. These kids aren't very intelligent because they're, like David said, they're being taught to the test. They're not being taught to to take certain things and solve problems with them. If you give case in point, I'll use boys. If boys had to build just a little square, and they had let's say they're age appropriate, they can work with tools, not power tools, just a handsaw, some nail screws, hammer, screwdriver, Phillips flathead, and they were given the instructions. Most of these young men, 16, 17, 18, couldn't put together a wooden cube. That is a failing on multiple levels. And I'm not here to point a finger at anyone before anyone says anything. More than likely, the father that this young man has, he never could do it. So if he can't do it, and the school didn't teach him, then where does he learn?
Let me add this to that. So last year we had a thing called group mentorship group called Black Boy Joy. We didn't necessarily care for that name, but that's a whole different story. That's what they came up with, and we had went to like this airport engineering like place where they build planes, and some of the kids in the group they they would never do schoolwork, didn't like it, stayed in trouble, but they had to break up into groups. And it was so interesting watching them work together and build these model planes.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and like one of the kids, I'm like, dude, man, like like you was a man out there, like why you don't do this in school? And you're like, I don't know, Mr. Glover, whatever. Like, don't be interested. I said, I see you as a foreman, supervisor, and because he was delegating, like, oh, y'all need to do no, we need this part. I need you to go get these screws over here and do that. And I'm like, but you always get in trouble in school. And he was like, I know. And I was like, I need you to apply for a magnet program so you could get into something. It might not have the specific program you want, but you need to be doing some hands on. He
Yeah.
didn't he didn't want to go through that process either. So my thing is always like these kids they need to have stuff that they can have a personal connection to show off other things. Some of them never be scholars. Some of them will never pass a test. Some of them will never study for a test because their environment at home is chaotic. How the hell they gonna study when they you got freaking adults having card parties and people coming over and they're watching TV loud and carrying on. So we have to find ways again like they say in the future, project based learning and things of that nature that's going to spark the interest of these kids. Because other than that, I I have a grave concern uh, that the particular curriculum that's set up now, it's not going to work. It's not been working, and these kids they need more, and we are not addressing the social issue. I know you
Yes.
parade around, you have stuff about mental health and all that. Sometimes it may not even just be that deep. It's just these kids need basic social skills, basic etiquette stuff to know. And maybe they do that at home. No, you just can't. If a door is shut, the office door is shut, you just can't walk in. You can't do that. You have to knock. But then again, maybe at home, and that's why they see all types of shit. Mother hanging from chandeliers and shit like that. Somebody plowing it down. They just walk it, busting rooms. Can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone. I got a parent in here. What are you doing? These pieces are critical, and I can think back to, we talk about financial literacy, how that used to be a component of school, and then it's not. I can remember having an intern, and we did this financial literacy piece that kind of they chose their profession, matched up the salary, kind of asked them where they wanted to live, how many kids they wanted, gave them their monthly money. And that shit was so powerful because they would have to go around and pull pull cards for certain situations that came up. And I remember this one young lady, she was like, she had a decent job, but her scenario, she had a child. So her money was kind of running low in certain areas. And then she pulled a card and she like $900 for mechanical fees on my car. She's like, I only have like $1,100. So if I spend $900, I only got $200 of it. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I still got to pay. I'm supposed to pay my rent or mortgage. I said, well, either you and your son may live in that car, or you might have to bite the bullet and go stay somewhere, whether it's at your parents' house, sibling house. More than likely, you might be on the couch somewhere. On the couch? I don't want to sleep on the couch with my son. I'm like, listen, numbers don't lie. You only got this amount of money left. She was tight about it. She was getting mad as hell. It's just like, she was like, so this is what it means when I ask my mom and dad for money and they say they don't have it this time. I said exactly what it means. So you may see it and like, oh, they got it. But when they pay bills and then sometimes it's extra money that got to be forked out that they weren't planning on doing, like your $900 car expense mechanic breakdown of your car. I said, this is what they mean. She was like, she was messed up. So the other kids might have been in a better situation. So all day they kept messing with her. After that, they're like, oh, sit there with your broke ass. But she was taking it personal. She was taking it personal because it kind of so she was like, wow.
Very right too, because kids can
that's
be
the
mean.
type of stuff that needs to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah. I mean, it because my brother talked about something similar he did with his program that he runs, and it's the perfect way to step out as an adult and let the kids come to the realization of what life really is for adults. Because as you said, they see it one way, and this is like I said, education is a multifaceted thing. This is another educational tool. I mean, and this is a concept I talked about a month or so ago. And there was a video that I posted in the Council's Corner about it, where they were taking these abandoned places and they were transforming them into little business hubs. You had restaurants, hairdressing salons in there, all these things that you can take and develop the soft skills that are necessary for these kids. Now, I know, AI is coming online. AI is already online. It's growing. So a lot of jobs that are prevalent now probably won't be as prevalent 15, 20 years from now. With that said, that doesn't mean that you don't practice soft skills. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you go, what you do in life. Those are skills that will get you in the door. Say it again. Those are the skills that will get you in the door. A lot of people can't even get into the door because they don't know how to act. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to behave in certain situations. And I'm a proponent of scrapping prom in the way that we see it nowadays. Prom should be held once a month. Prom should be done by the kids at that grade level. Kids in first grade, have them put on a suit and a tie and shoes. No pants sagging, belt, young women, dresses. They go back there in the cafeteria spaces where the cooks are. They understand and they learn what it means to prep food. They understand what it means to serve food. They understand what it means to be served. So they don't behave like assholes when they go out in public. They'll understand what it means to actually have to prepare something, and they actually understand what it means to have to wait on something to be prepared. Think about this. If you do this for 1 month, for 12 years, by the time those kids get to high school, get out of high school, guess what? They'll have a new appreciation for the food service industry. They'll have a new appreciation for the service industry. All these TikTok videos that we see, people going in here throwing things, being disruptive and being volatile towards the staff, I guarantee you that will be minimalized significantly. But because we don't think outside the box, we want to stick to what has been classified as education, we don't change. And I'll book in that with this. I saw a commercial. It chronicled how America had went from an agrarian society to a mechanical society to a technical society. It chronicled how we grew our food, how we shop, how we did virtually everything. And every so often, they would show a classroom. Seats neatly in a row, blackboard. By the time they got to the year 2000, they said everything in America has changed except education. Isn't it time we took a look at education? This is what you were talking about earlier, Greg. So, and I'm going to let you know now, the unions are going to stand in the way. Because if it means job losses, they're not going to be amenable to it. Because that's their job, is to protect their constituency. I'm not saying the union is a bad thing. I'm just saying they can be a hindrance to shifting what we know as education. So the first thing they're going to say is, okay, well, who's going to do this? What degree is going to be required to teach it? Are the people that are presently employed still going to have their jobs? And if the answer is no to the jobs, you can forget it. This is why I talked about last week that people need to start pooling resources. There are 4 million teachers, 4 million plus teachers in the United States of America as of this year. And I got this information from the website weareteachers.com. 2 million of those teachers, a little more, just about 50%, are teaching elementary. Okay? Your primary building block of education, that's where half of your teachers are. They are tasked with formulating these kids' minds. So going forward, they have a sense of what to do. Now, I'm not talking about morality. That's a different topic. That should be taught at home, but due to the fact that we have a lot of amoral parents raising these kids and some incorrigible parents raising these kids come to school and they act out And the same thing that Dave was talking about. He said he'd go in a room and see his mother getting plowed down. What do you think he's going to act in school? How do you think she's going to act in school? See, we tend to overlook a lot of things. Oh, that's just them being them. Well, Billy's not necessarily being Billy. Billy is being Billy because of what Billy sees at home.
Damn, this sounds like we're like Start with Love. Whoa, the modern day reiteration.
I mean, it's rough out here, man. I mean, we are in the midst of the disintegration of the family unit. Single motherhood is being pushed. Feminism is being touted as this and that. All the while, the kids are left holding a bag. And when these kids go to open that bag up, there ain't nothing in there. No food, no money, no wisdom, no nothing. So they're left to wander aimlessly. Now, what happens when you got a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid who's barely able to do anything in high school and they make it to graduation now? They're supposed to become part of the workforce? Where are they going to get hired at? They can't even read.
So they just copy and paste.
Copy and paste what? They don't have they can't fill out an application.
Oh, they don't have to do it nowadays. Are you saying here in LA? They're on the laptops now. They don't ask to write anything.
I'll tell you what. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. The application didn't function correctly. There's no instructions. There's nobody to call. What do? This is where the ability to think critically comes in, because most people just get frustrated and turn around and just leave. And that's built into the system. There's a certain percentage that they factor in that's, what they say, because the application process is so difficult, we're only looking to fill 10 slots. We had 100 people show up today, but only 7 managed to get through the application process. So we still short 3 people out of 100% potential hires. And this is what happens. This is what people don't know and people don't talk about. So when we talk about education, it's literally it is like a multi-tiered thing. So when you got these people who are coming in from, as you said, Eastern Asia, India, whether it's China, Japan, or any of those countries in the Asian diaspora where education is stressed, they coming over here and they taking lunch money. Okay, they taking jobs. And you know what? The companies don't care. They're looking for bodies. They're looking for competency. They don't care what that competency looks like. They don't care what that competency sounds like. Can you do the job? You're hired. And Americans thinking that Americans are going to get preferential treatment. Excuse me. That is not happening. Here to tell you. It's going to get ugly before it gets better.
So we got a lot of
Thank
going
you.
on. It's a lot of it's a lot of comments that were coming in from the counselor's corner, and I was been going on my back and forth on my phone with actually Dr. Daphne. I guess she been saying a lot, and I know she has a lot to add to this conversation, but it's not showing up on the live stream here because
it sure is. Yeah,
the stream is set up through my main page because there's more people on my page, and then YouTube.
They're not coming through on Facebook
so
either. I don't see them.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why that would be the case. But again, one of the things I always say, none of this work unless it's 50% academics, 50% social. If you don't address the social issues that's going on that impacts education, then we're going to get what we're going to get. So, after going through and looking at the future of it, this some of the things that they predict. They said, number one, online learning will continue to grow, and people will
Mhm.
pull their kids from regular school because of the lack of social issues or the lack of people who in charge who can't handle kids. Because one thing we got to understand too, not everybody is cut to be a top dog at a school just because they book smart, but they don't know how to relate to kids, and kids don't listen to them.
Yep.
So a lot of parents will pull their kids from regular school and say, "You're not about to deal with that, so you're going to do online learning." Well, sometimes that hurt the kids too because if they're not a part of a lot of social stuff after that, then they don't get those skills. So they go on to college, and it's like shit. Those are the kids that'll be turned out on drugs and alcohol because they haven't been through anything. And then once they had their first failures in college, they're ready to lose it. Not in all cases. I'm just throwing some things out there because we know that's a possibility. They said prediction number two: personalized learning will be the norm. I don't see nothing wrong with that. Like with personalized learning, all kids are unique and different in their own way. So it has to be a way that you could craft their path, and it should be personalized towards them. Nah, English ain't my thing. I know I need to write, but I don't. I maybe not at the level of the next person. I need to focus more on math or science, and because the path I'm going, instead of sitting in meaningless classes, maybe they need to be out in the workforce or somewhere at their job learning different skills. So I think there's nothing wrong with it being personalized towards that particular individual. Number three, and Herb had mentioned this before, artificial intelligence will revolutionize education. So you already have that playing a role in
I'm a
teachers.
rebel with that.
Teachers don't have to compute grades. That's done for you. You put it in the system and it calculates it
Oh crap!
for you. And and some of them just leave it at that instead of saying, "Wait a minute, this kid. I know their grades came out this way, but I know this is a B level kid
Mhm.
or whatever. I want to try to adjust. I want to adjust it or make sure that they get their just due because just put numbers in a thing, it may come out that they failed the hell out of the class or did low. But you know, as far as participation and everything else, that's an A student. So that's one of the ways. Number four, and we can piggyback on after I get through all this. Virtual and augmented reality will transform education. You already know they trying to do the virtual learning and all of the augmented reality. That's coming down the pipe. That it's gonna be like they looking at a damn big virtual reality made video game. What else? Let's see. Oh, let me get through these. Almost. Uh, learning will be lifelong.
Mhm. Simple.
So let me just read it quickly. In the past, education was typically something that was completed in the first 2 decades of life, with a few exceptions for continuing education programs. However, in the future, learning will be a lifelong pursuit. And I don't see nothing wrong with that either because a lot of times parents become stagnant in what they do. They work their jobs or whatever, work their little jobs, but kids are always watching us. So you stand on a better ground to say, hey, dad got to take a class, or mom is taking a class, and once they get older and realize, like, yo, they always on the grind. They always got something going on. They always reading. They always doing something. So I picked up on that. So it's a lifelong process, and that's the problem. A lot of times people get robotic. They work their job and they settle for their little 15, 20-cent raises and stuff like that, instead of saying, hey, I got to do better. I got to do better because I want them to do better, and I got to lead by example. 6, the role of teachers will change. So instead of all that uh, teacher talk lecturing, they may be more facilitators. Kids may, they may have something. They might be driving their own education, or it may be more of a format that it's a lot of student talk, and the teachers just facilitate it, kind of keeping everything under control, but letting them, learn and grow with each other, instead of somebody's talking and the kids never get a chance to say anything. Sort of like something they probably need to do with the church, but y'all ain't hear me say that. Too much of one person talking, and it should be other people talking. But that's a whole different thing. Competency-based education will gain traction. So basically, is an approach to learning that focuses on mastering specific skills and knowledge rather than completing a certain amount of time in a class. This approach allows students to move at their own pace and focus on areas where they need more support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And ain't no teaching to the test, whatever. Kids learn, they learn at certain paces at different levels, and we have to acknowledge that. So based on their competency of something, you have to work with them. Education will become more global. We already know that that's going down now, and we're, the problem is we're trying to be in competition with others, or America is the melting pot. You got other people coming over here, and they blowing our doors out the water, and we falling behind, and we wonder why. But those are some of the things that they predict. Hey, what y'all guys got to say about those predictions?
There's a clip, and this clip, when it hit, it caused a whole lot of people to be uneasy. Some people were displeased. Some people were upset. Some people were calling for, writers' show to be censored, if you will. There's a TV show called News Radio. An actor named Jeff Daniels is playing a college professor, and he's asked by a college student, or a college student asked her at a seminar, and there's a group of people on stage that's speaking, and a monitor asks him about American exceptionalism. He gives a canned answer. And the guy said, I'm not going to let you go to the airport with that answer. And I'm paraphrasing. There's a woman who, in the audience, holds up a sign and said, tell the truth. He says, okay. He said, because of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And once again, the host said, no. So one's a set of laws, the other's the declaration of war. I want a human response from you. I want a human moment. And he breaks off into a soliloquy about what America is not. Talks about literacy rates, education, incarceration, and it is an absolute masterful piece of television. So compelling that I'm referencing it, and I want you, the listening audience, to go. It's about a 3 to 4 minute clip. Well worth the time investment. News Radio, Jeff Daniels, American Exceptionalism. And in a nutshell, he speaks about most of the things that David just mentioned about where this country is, what this country once was and what it isn't. We collectively, we have the ability in our hands to impact that future. I always talk about voting, particularly locally, because that's where your vote has the greatest impact. You don't like something that's going on in your school district? Go talk to your board of education officials. And if they don't address it, then vote their ass out. And you keep voting people out until you get the desired results. It might come down to you actually running for yourself, running yourself rather. And it doesn't matter if you don't win. I'm going to say that as an individual who's ran for Board of Education 3 times and didn't win. You have a voice, and the only way that voice is heard is if you speak. You're having a problem and nobody knows about it because you don't speak. Yeah, that's your responsibility. I'm going to say it because you didn't open your mouth. So it's just the old adage, a closed mouth don't get fed. You want to eat, open your mouth and say, I'm hungry. Where's my plate? If you got to kick the door down off the hinges and break up a meeting to get some attention, do that. Why? Because your kid's future is at stake. We always talk about, you hear people talking about, I don't do anything for my child. You do anything for your child except make sure your child has an adequate education. That's not doing anything for your child. That's the opposite. You letting the system educate your kids because you think that's what the system's job is. No, that's not the system's job. That's your job as a parent to make sure your kid gets an education. So like David said, if your kid comes home and they say they don't have any homework and they ain't hanging A's up in report cards, there's a problem. Your responsibility, not job as a parent. Being a parent is not a job, it's a responsibility. Your responsibility as a parent is to say, okay, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you sitting here with a C+ grade overall and you don't have any homework? Well, guess what? I'm going to speak to your teachers tomorrow. I guarantee you some homework will mysteriously start appearing the next day. Guaranteed. We're rewarding mediocrity. I'm here to tell you. I see a lot of these kids walking around with $100 shoes on, $600 cell phones, and they ain't got 2 pennies to rub together in their goddamn heads. You don't like this? Too bad. I'm here to give you brass tacks.
Well,
the education system is failing. You as a parent is.
And we always talk about this in equation to sports about everybody gets a trophy and all that stuff. The mindset also has to be that knowing your children. I know we hear the cliche stuff. You can do whatever you'd want to do. Can do whatever your heart desires. After a while, you know what your kid can do.
Yeah.
You know what they going to do. So it's up to you to say, nope, nope, I'm not investing in that. Because at a certain point, they may have to show you they got to earn it. If you really want to be a part of this, if you really want to do this, prove it to me. Because other than that, I'm not just going to fork out this or fork out that. You know, if some of you kids have big hopes and aspirations that your son or your daughter, you know, it's going to be the NBA, WNBA, NFL. After a while, reality has to kick in, and sometimes, as parents, you probably have to be dream crushers and say, based on what you've seen and what they've shown you, are you really crushing their dreams? If you break it down to them and get to the bottom of it, see, but that comes from higher level questioning to be able to talk to them and get stuff out of them and to try to maximize the most you can get out of them, that they'll say, yeah, you're right. No, I don't practice. I don't do anything. I didn't want to sign up for this. I didn't want to do that. So how do you expect to get better? But some of y'all, like Herbert said, go for anything. Let's throw on this. Everything is a dog and pony show. throwing the high price sneakers, do this, do that, high price phones, and all that stuff, and they never have the opportunity to try to prove themselves. But the one thing you do have to understand is you're not always going to be around.
Right.
You're not going to always be around. So you got to try to put them in a position to win, not to get by, because a lot of our generations during our time and before our time was just to get by.
Yeah,
But
that was
we
all they could
can't
do,
have that
literally.
mindset. So we have to raise the bar, because a lot of them, they have no reason not to be able to be successful in certain things. Everything is out there for them, but they have to have the will to do it. And that's a part of education, and part of people holding people accountable for certain things. I have students all day long, and I'll tell them, you probably should be in a GT class. You like, this stuff is easy work for you, but sometimes they don't want to be challenged because they want to be a part of the in crowd, or
Mhm.
the people that's not willing to push themselves, and then you try to convince them. Well, at the end of the day, these same people you're going to be in competition with. So
Yeah,
somehow, some way, you're going to have to distance yourself from them to improve or get better. And the same thing I always say about everybody looking alike. So you got to be try to be different, uncommon. Can't walk around looking the same as everybody and thinking the same as everybody. You gotta elevate and educate yourself and motivate yourself. And some of it is intrinsic motivation that you gotta dig down deep inside to get better. And I think a lot of times we do a poor job with kids on fire as intrinsic motivation to keep them motivated inside. And it's not an easy thing to do. You don't know what works. Shit, a lot of you just, you're only hoping that the light bulb goes off and they find some niche, and you're like, oh shit, they soaring now. But you got to
yeah,
find that.
yeah, yeah. The I'll relay a story that I was fortunate to be a part of. I was having a discussion with an individual, and this individual was a standout track star, and he would go home to his mother with the clippings. And this is to follow what Dave was saying about you might have to be a dream crusher. He would go home with the press clippings, and he would show his mother, and his mother read and said, "That's not you. I don't know who that is, but that's not you." And he was adamant. He said, "It is. Look at my name. It's right there." She said, "No, that person, I don't know who that is, but that's not you." What she did for him was she kept his feet on the ground. So he would push and push and push himself harder to produce to gain her acceptance. She was keeping his feet on the ground to make sure that he did that. Some parents, and this is not to say you can't encourage your kid, you can't give your kid some level of good job. You can, but we have a lot of parents that for the most insignificant thing, they reward their kids. And it gives them a false sense of superiority. And eventually they get to a point where they're not as good. And because they've never have been told, excuse me, that the work they're doing is okay, but you're going to have to work harder if you want more. You're going to have to do better if you want better. This whole participation culture that has been forced upon us is going to have dire consequences and is already having an adverse effect. Is because when these kids finally meet somebody that they can't compete, the first thing they want to do is fight. They want to get verbally belligerent. And next thing you know, they're sitting in Miss Daphne's office or Amanda's office because they're admins for disciplinary reasons. When it's not necessarily a disciplinary reason, it's an ego issue. And the ego is they've never lost before. They've never finished second or third. They've never finished out of the tops. So they don't know how to handle disappointment. So now they go from being a good student to a disciplinary problem because they don't know how to take and accept the loss. Everybody loses something at some point in time. Nobody wins all the time. I don't care who it is. Even you take the greatest athlete that's ever lived. Some people say it's Michael Jordan. Even Michael Jordan lost. You take the greatest hockey player that's probably ever lived, Wayne Gretzky. He's lost. Peyton Manning's lost. Tom Brady's lost. Hell, I don't know of anyone on this planet who hasn't lost some competition. It's the nature of competition. But the beautiful aspect about that is, as long as it doesn't kill you, and I rarely seen anybody die from competition, you get to come back again and try again. That's the beauty of it. But we don't teach that aspect of it. We teach it's all or nothing. No, you always get another shot unless you quit. Well, if you quit, then nobody cares. Go on about your business, take whatever it is that you earn to have, and go sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais. That's what you wanted anyway. You didn't want to put in the work. You didn't want to put in the effort. Remember, you didn't want to go to bed at 9 o'clock. You wanted to go to bed at 10 o'clock. Well, guess what the A students are doing? The A students are coming home, doing the homework, and at 8:30, they going to bed. You want to be successful? You got to do what it takes to be successful. Don't tell me you want to be successful. Show me you want to be successful.
I want to read this comment from Daphne, which is, deep. She said, please understand that the majority of the teachers are white females and they teach below grade level because they think our kids aren't smart and it makes their lives easier while in the classroom. And a lot of that has to do with kids being classified and special education and those type of programs, and got different BIPs, behavior improvement programs and stuff like that people may say, oh, all I got to do is give them this amount because they're not gonna they're not going to pay attention or stay focused on it. But the reality of it is, because you probably got the wrong teacher that's teaching them, and that has a lot to. So again, it's so many things that we can pick and prod about with education. We just wanted to have this conversation because all of this plays a role in the future of education. You can come and say, oh, it's going to be all this technology based and this and that. Shit, they're still human beings. You still going to have to focus on, there's still going to have to be some social component to it. And I think that is the problem. And I think, and I spoke on this, I think last week, that, with our young people, like, I can remember back in the days when you went to work a job, you had somebody that was the manager or something at these establishments that were a little older, a little wiser, a little seasoned, know how to get the most out of them. But it's hard to say that, when a kid's 16, 17, 18, and their manager is 20 or the same age. And I don't know if that's the solution, and I don't know if that young person has all the tools. So, and you'll see why certain kids, they're not successful at certain jobs because, again, leadership is key. Leadership is key. And I think it's important for our young people to be able to step into jobs to make money, learn how to save, learn how to deal with conflict, but have people that's going to guide them in the right way. You can't have people that's 18, 19, and the other people 16, 17, and they saying shit, like you're an idiot or you're fucking dumb or whatever the case is. Kids ain't gonna move on that. They're not gonna move on that. Just like they wouldn't move if a teacher was talking that type of language. They're not gonna do anything. Anything they're gonna do is join together, try to find a way to get your ass fired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to have, and this is for business owners and all of that stuff. You have to have people that can move kids
Right.
in the right direction that they're going to listen to and they're going to respect. Because if you don't have that and you just filling in, oh, well, I'm going to make them a supervisor. We getting older. We can't be up in this. Right? Sooner or later, your business or your school and all that shit going to crumble real fast. Real fast. So I guess to say all this, it really, technology is going to keep pushing forward. We don't have computer chips in us. So we still got that human element and that social element that has to adapt to everything. And best believe that has to be addressed. And again, and not only just mental health and all that, because we all go through something. We all feel sad some days and all that, but that doesn't mean people want to be labeled as somebody with a mental illness. People just need to be some people just need to be guided in the right direction, and they need to be motivated. But you have to have the right person to motivate them, and I think that's a big part of education too. But we'll see how this pans out. I don't know how long we'll be around to see it, but
Yeah.
for the time that we're here, just got to enjoy the moment and enjoy the ride. But I know for myself, I'm like, shit, I'm ready. I got to hurry up and get the hell out of Dodge and just sit back and see how it unfolds.
I
But
just want to go
I
ahead.
enjoy the kids aspect. I was going to say I enjoy the kid aspect all day long, dealing with them. It's always the politics and the other riffraff that happens.
I just want to give
Short.
Daphne.
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead, Gavin. I'm sorry.
No, I gotta go, but it's
Oh,
been
okay.
good listening.
Yeah,
I look forward to the next one. Keep me in tune and send me StreamYard links, okay?
we'll do. We'll do.
Brother
Appreciate you
David,
joining us, man.
thanks
All right.
again.
All right. Thanks for coming through, brother.
I just want to address Daphne's comment for anyone who believes that her intent is race baiting. It is not. If you do a statistical analysis, or you can go research this on any website you want, the overwhelming number of teachers are Caucasian females. That has been a chief complaint in the educational system for years. And it speaks to a lack of, when this is something we took, Dave mentioned it, I did, this hints at a lack of cultural diversity. This has been a common theme in American education going back to the end of the Civil War. Denzel Washington even talked about this in Hollywood when he mentioned that I'm sorry, it wasn't Martin Scorsese. I can't remember who directed the movie. Steven Spielberg directed the movie Schindler's List. He said Steven Spielberg could have directed any movie. He's that talented. He said, but when it comes to directing a movie like that, it becomes a cultural thing. He said, and there was a particular thing that Denzel said. He said, if I mention a hot comb in Greece, that means nothing to vast majority of people. He said, but to black people, they smell that. They know what that's like. Why? because it's in our culture. There are certain things that I cannot teach another individual who is of a different culture. That doesn't mean I can't teach them. That doesn't mean I can't teach them about certain things because I've never had the experience of having to endure that. It's the same thing with somebody trying to teach Hispanic kids when you're not Hispanic, Native American kids when you're not Native American, Caucasian kids when you're not Caucasian. We can all teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, such as it was called about a century ago. We can all, if you're certified through the state, you can teach that. But I can't teach you what it's like to have somebody say your hair is nappy. I can't teach you what it's like to feel when somebody says you got thin lips. I can't teach you what it's like to when somebody says, oh, you got squinted eyes. I can't teach you how to feel because I don't know what that's like. So when we talk about things of this nature, it's a cultural based thing, not a race based thing. So people just understand when these comments come out, don't internalize them. Go out and speak to the people who are adversely affected by the environment that they're in, regardless of what you think. And I have conversations with my really, really good friend. She's not here right now. And I always tell her, for women, and I'm going to say this real slow because I want you to understand, when you are having a conversation with somebody, do not use the following 3 words: me, my, and I. Why? Because it prevents you from understanding the world that exists outside of you. In order for you to do that, you have to remove yourself from the conversation and look at it like a bird would the world. Then and only then can you begin to start to understand. I'm not saying you have to agree with anything. Then and only then can you begin to understand things from different perspectives, because that's what you're taking in. You're taking in this perspective. You're taking in that perspective. You're saying, oh, wow, I never thought about this in that way. Like I said, this country, 20 years from now, it will be unrecognizable. Think about this country when we were kids. Gen X's were kids. There were 2 racial groups in this country. There was black and there was white. That's not the case anymore. And we're talking just half a century. Just imagine what this country is going to look like in another half a century. It's time that we start to embrace the diversity that we have in this country. Some of the things that we have are due. Matter of fact, look at our food. We got people that love Mexican food, Taco Tuesdays, deep dish pizza, Chinese food, sushi. None of these are uniquely what we would consider to be American food cuisines. They all come from other cultures. So people, for better or for worse, our culture is going to shift. Shouldn't the educational system reflect that? Shouldn't it shift with it? Shouldn't how we teach, how we learn, how we live together? That's already happened, how we live together. That's already happening. Shouldn't all these things be reflective of what the country is becoming, not what the country was? I'm just asking a question. G Money, what's up, Greg?
Hey, you baited me in, brother.
How you been, man?
Let me get my sound worked out here.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
going
can
on?
look at you on the link, not on the YouTube.
That's fine. No matter. We can hear you. That's all we need.
You know, one of the beauties of watching Controversial Counselor is the fact that as an old honky, 68-year-old honky, I get an insight into Black culture. And Herb, you know that sometimes I hear stuff on this show and You can tell I'm pulling my hair out when I write
Yes.
you the messages of, did I really hear what I just heard? Okay. And so, you've talked a little bit about the social stuff, and I'd like to just talk about the culture in the Black community, and I want to ask questions
Sure.
about how the Black community approaches education. And I want to preface it with a little bit of what I saw in the past. In 1974, 1975, I was a lifeguard at Bethel Pool on the south side of Indy in the federal housing projects. I had a friend named Cheryl Southern, beautiful Black gal, who was an A honor student at Manual High School there on the south side of Indy. She was persecuted by her peers for being a good student. Fast forward to about 10 years ago, there was a YouTube went viral of a young Black man that had just gotten a 4.0 straight A's being beaten up by his supposed friends for doing so well scholastically. Now, is there a positive emphasis in Black culture on being scholastically successful? That's the question. Because you talked about family, you talked about the teachers. It doesn't seem like we've talked about the community aspect of it tonight.
I will answer that question in this way. In my opinion, no. But there's a caveat to the no. That's going to depend on where that person or that family lives. If that family lives in an upwardly mobile area, then absolutely. Dr. Dunbar is a testament to that. You have people who will push education because they understand that is a component. Because as a culture, going back about 60 years ago before the civil rights movement, Blacks weren't afforded the ability to learn, especially males. As males, we would just look at beast of burden. You go out there, you earn with your hands. You go build, you go do this, you do that. Black men were never supposed to be educated. Educated was for the elites, and then secondarily, Black women. This is why a lot of programs, especially educational ones, are geared towards Black women, because they understand that an educated Black man, he's dangerous. And the world understands that. If this is why slaves weren't taught to read, especially Black male slaves. You got some of the women who were allowed to read because nobody ever feared the women because they could only do so much. However, if you give a man who's physically capable of imposing his will upon other people some knowledge, he becomes very dangerous. And that's what a lot of people don't want to see Black men with. They don't want to see a man that's physically capable being mentally capable, because now he presents a danger. Every society, America included, needs a scapegoat. And Black men for a long time have been scapegoated. We're scapegoated by our women. We're scapegoated by America. Even Hillary Clinton, a lady who was running for president of the United States, called us predators. Think about that for a moment. How can a woman denigrate a demographic that she's supposed to represent when she thinks inherently they are criminals? This is the cultural image that not only do we have to fight that's external of our own people, it's internal of our own people. This is why you see a rise of the Black manosphere, red pill, what they reference as red pill content, and all those other things. Kevin Samuels was vilified for telling people and for questioning why Black women felt and spoke the way they did about Black men. Educated lambs. Nobody else in this world is referred to as educated lambs other than Black men. That's a cultural aspect. Anywhere else in this world, an educated man is considered a prize, but not in Black America, because it doesn't float the boat of Black women. That's the answer. They might have a different one.
Yeah,
Well, let me reroute that
no,
back to
it's kind
the
of similar.
education
Mhm.
topic about education. Tell me how, I don't disagree with what you just said. I see that all the time, especially. Seems like the last 10 or 15 years we've been going backwards in race relations. But how does that impact a young black child in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade? Okay.
Uh-huh. It'll
That's
keep them, it'll mentally, it'll keep them from wanting to succeed. Dave spoke about this earlier, with wanting to fit in so you don't do well because you don't want to leave your peers behind. So you don't, knowing you can do well on the test, you say, well, I'm going to give a half-hearted effort on this test, and at the end of the day, I can get to go home and hang out with my people. Well, nobody wants to be considered the dummy of the crew. Being a smart one in the crew is okay though, unless you get to be too smart, then you become a target. That's why it's a very very tricky dichotomy for younger black men and females actually to do academically well at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade levels. Once you get into high school, you start to distinguish yourself. You're kind of more recognized because people realize that those 4 years are the springboard to college. So once you get out of that, that realm, and you're into college, you're no longer having to deal with that because everybody who goes to college, they're trying to get a degree. You're the one that they're going to come ask questions. You're going to be the one that ends up tutoring. And if you do well, you could be a teacher's assistant. You could be valedictorian. You could be salutatorian. All of those things are prized once you get to a certain level. But getting to that level is the difficult part.
Well, then let me ask the question: when a young black man or black lady has the attitude that you just talked about not wanting to excel too much, to not fit in with their peer group, it seems to me like there's absolutely nothing a teacher of any race can do to undo that mindset.
Well,
That becomes something that is unconquerable for the teacher, no matter what they do, until the child themselves has the motivation to excel in education. What can the teacher do?
it,
I'll let you answer that one day because you're in a better position to give good feedback as opposed to me.
and it may be nothing. I mean, and it depends again on the teacher. Some teachers may not understand that or may not be experienced in that. So it's always important for students to connect with someone in the school building that they can relate to, that they're getting the same message, especially if they're getting the same message from certain people at school and certain people at home, then you
Mhm.
often hear kids say, man, you sound just like my mom. You sound just like my
Yep.
dad. And I'm like, so we must be right, right? Yeah, I guess. And you'll see them smiling or whatever, but they have to hear those common things. And once they hear it, they'll say, man, they're not steering me in the wrong way. Um, so, but I think sometimes it takes stability, relationship building, connecting, and having conversations other than curriculum based. Sometimes you just got to have conversations. Sometimes you got to get to their level and make them feel comfortable that when you, as a teacher, as a counselor, as someone, that they'll receive the information that you give them. You can't always be pointing, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. Sometimes you just have to say, hey, We here. We connected. I'm gonna be, you have sometimes you have to get down to their level and be silly and speak their language. And when they know you're genuine, they'll follow your lead. So, we can't always control what's gonna happen in the household, but then again, sometimes parents know that my child speaks highly of this certain staff member. So I want to find out who this person is. And once they find out, and then y'all form a connection, then you always tag team and triple team the kids. But you got to do it together because they know how to split they know how to split parents, and they know how to split staff and teachers. But you got to find people that's going to connect and everybody be on the same page. Because other than that, then you never know what route they're going to take.
Yeah. And I'll follow that up with saying, like I said earlier, some lessons are universal. Pain, suffering, and failure are universal. This is where a teacher, regardless of the ethnicity, they can make inroads and bridges and they can connect. But they have to humanize themselves. They can't make it, I'm the teacher, you're the student, so you have to do what I say. So, in order to do that, a teacher has to find a situation where there's a common ground. When I was a mentor in the school, Laso Preparatory, they looked at me as part of the staff, and for lack of a better term, I was just a staff with no with no authority. So I would do things, sit in the chair, listen, ask the teacher the same way they did. If there was something that one of the students didn't understand, I remember doing this in Mrs. Klingersmith's class, and I can't remember the Hispanic teacher. Forgive me, because she had gotten married, so her name had changed. And she taught. I think she taught math. Mrs. Klingersmith taught history, U.S. history. And I would say, and I would ask her, say, "Can I intercede for a moment?" And she would say, "By all means." And I would sit there. I said, "You know what? I understand what you're going through because I had the same problem." Now they're looking at me as a fully functional adult. You sat here and because I told them, I said I sat in the same building when I was your age. So automatically there's a connection. And then I would say, you know what? As opposed to looking at the problem like this, look at it like this. Bop, bop, bop. And all of a sudden, it made sense to them. They said, "Oh, I never looked at it like that." And the teacher said, "You know what? That's a good way to look at it." I said, because we all, David said this, we all learn differently. Once they started putting numbers in math, I was done. I said, "Y'all, we talking numbers, y'all talking alphabet. What the hell is this?" But it's the connection that a teacher establishes with somebody. Matter of fact, David is fond of quoting them. He quoted them earlier with his methods of learning. John Wooden. John Wooden took inner city kids and he was able to reach them in a way that not only made them feel human, but it made them feel like they were valued. And I think this is people who are impoverished. You know, they don't identify with having a self worth. And that is probably the hardest thing for anybody to manage is not having a sense of value to your friends, to your family, to no one around you. Just imagine walking around and nobody sees you intrinsically as something worth investing in. Not even a hello, not even a hi. How you doing? What can I do for you? It is demoralizing. Now, just imagine having gone through COVID and nobody's there to help you. Nobody asks how you doing. Are you hungry? Can I get you something to eat? It's just basic human decency. That's not being afforded to a lot of students, regardless of the ethnicity. And so, doing well academically, you could care less. Why? Nobody's going to care about me anyway. That's the thing. What was me? So Those are the type of lessons that a teacher can use to build the inroads. And once a teacher builds inroads and a student believes that that teacher cares, that student will show up for that teacher. So, because some people wonder why some teachers don't have problems with certain students, even though they've been labeled as malcontents and having behavioral issues in other classes. It's because they connect with that teacher. So guess what they don't want to do with that teacher? They don't want to make that teacher's day hard. They say, hey, look, Mrs. So-and-so, she always treats me well. Mr. So-and-so, they always listen to me. I may not like them. I may not like what they say, like David said, but they always listen to me. If I have a problem, I can go to them and talk. And most of the time, that's all these students want. There's a cry for help, but the cry for help sometimes comes out and is diagnosed wrongly as a behavior problem. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand.
They want to be validated, and once they get that connection, they don't want to disappoint that person. That's why you can always, certain kids, who they relate to. Prime example, I was doing a week ago, 2 weeks ago, had state testing, had a tough crowd, boys, ADHD off the roof, hyperactive, being in a room for a couple hours. But once you understand who they connect with, one of the boys, he probably was the worst one. And when I mentioned a certain teacher's name, I would hate to tell him after testing how he was behaving. He would that would calm his little nerves. He was like, oh no, man, don't tell him, don't tell him, because he was a part of the basketball team, and probably he's a short, really small in stature, elementary small, but the teacher brought him on because he knew that he had behavior issues throughout, so he wanted to link him to connect with something and connect with other students and kind of keep him on this control. And granted, he'll probably never go on and play high school basketball or anything, but for the time right now, he's enjoying the moment. He's going along for the ride. So him being a part of that means everything.
Yeah.
So me as a counselor, seasoned counselor, also I always made mention to him, Dr. Papalardo, my first counseling one-on-one thing. He said it's a game of manipulation with kids. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to manipulate it. So you know some information and you'll say it. Oh, I would hate to tell such and such that you acting like this, that you can't sit here and complete this test. Once they think about it, they'll say, the ultimate thing, I don't want to disappoint that person.
Bingo.
So they get right. Not all the time. They may still challenge you on a few things, but eventually they'll settle in. So that's about it. Finding what makes people tick. And that's the same thing with adults. You got to know your personnel. You got to find out what makes people tick. When you can dig into those root causes, then things change.
Yeah.
Well, but in absence of that special teacher that you're talking about, and that's neat if a child can have that, but in absence of somebody like that, shouldn't the teacher be able to use the parents in that same role?
Yeah.
Like your mom and dad, they're not going to be real happy about what you're doing, tearing up the classroom, or
it depends. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like you always got to go deeper. Sometimes a kid will tell you, call them. I don't care. They're not going to do anything, and they know this.
Yeah.
So you lost that carrot. So you have to find, and that's the importance of knowing who you're dealing with.
Right.
You have to find something like, damn, I got to find something, not to say their weaknesses, but something that I know that they care about, or that they value, that I could use against them. If you don't have nothing and you lose all your tools as far as that, nah, You just might as well pack your lunch. You in for a long battle. You'll be calling on the walkie-talkie, and everybody come get the kid and all that stuff. So none of this stuff is fairy tale stuff. It don't work with everybody, but you got to find that niche or find what makes that person tick, and in some cases you don't find it. That's why kids go to alternative placements and different places, because they never connected with anybody that makes them say, I really don't want to disappoint that person. I know for me, uh I could have probably went any route. Never wanted to disappoint my mother, but also I thought about the hard work that my grandparents put in to help my mother. And I knew I only could take things so far because they worked too hard to make sure I had everything that everybody else had and even more. So with that, I was loyal to that. Not all kids this generation, sometimes they don't understand. Sometimes I have to give them a reality check, like, why are you acting like this? Aren't you with your grandmother? Isn't she older? And I might know certain things, that parents could be out there on drugs, father could be deceased, mother on drugs. Now you stand with the grandmother. Why are you doing this to her? Uh, she's this age and you're behaving like that. It don't always work, but you got to try. You got to try to figure out some carrots to so you keep doing it, especially when you care. You try to come up with all types of things.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there aren't a lot of teachers with students like what you're just addressing, where there's nobody that you can point to use for leverage for their behavior to get them to behave better. I will tell you, my mom was a school teacher in the Indianapolis public schools, same area of town that I lifeguarded in, and that when she started teaching in about 1970 time frame, she said she spent 10% of her time in the classroom maintaining discipline and 90% teaching. By the time she retired in the mid 1980s, she said it was the opposite way around.
Yeah.
90% maintaining discipline and 10% teaching. And part of that was during that time frame, the special ed kids were taken out of the special ed classes and incorporated into the regular classes. So she went from maybe 1 to 3 or 4 or 5 special needs children that took up 10, 15, 20% of her time every day, times 5, right? And so issues like that. So I mean, it seems to me like if we go back to what we started off with about having family, the teachers, and the community behind it, it would seem like one of the focuses that we need to be working on is student behavior in the classroom, and the fact that we really do have the right to demand that students behave during class so they can be taught. Because if they won't behave during class, they can't be taught, no matter how good the teacher is, no matter how good the curriculum is, no matter how much computer we have or video game or whatever, right?
That's where the legislation catches school districts up, because with the No Child Left Behind policy, that child is going to be pushed ahead anyway. So districts are caught between passing off a kid they know hasn't mastered the grade level that that child is in to the next person, so they become a bigger headache, more of a malcontent, more disenfranchised, and they keep pushing that kid through until eventually that kid gets to be a senior, and they're saying, hey, you don't have enough credits. You got to go back and repeat the 12th grade, because that happened. We had this happening now with one student. I can't remember where the student's based at. And then the parent says, well, why wasn't I notified? The child lives with you. What do you mean? Why weren't you notified? You don't get the progress reports. You don't look at the child's report card. You mean the child didn't have any homework for 11 years and you didn't question it? This is why people need to stop blaming the school system if they have not been an active parent in their child's academic pursuits. And we get that often. This is not to blame anyone. This is to hold the people accountable. Like I said, I don't believe in blame when it comes to certain things. Just like I don't believe parenting is a job. Parenting is a responsibility. Keeping track of your child's academic progress or lack thereof is your responsibility as an adult. There's portals. There's websites you can plug in every 5 weeks. When I did a mentoring program, I went into the schools and got progress reports of our players, especially if they were on a travel basketball team, of what they were doing. So we knew. So if we had to intervene, we were there before it got too bad. Most people won't do that nowadays.
And see, with that, also to play devil's advocate with that, kids are savvy enough to know they'll maintain good behavior during basketball season or football season, but then
Well, they can't fake the grades.
no, they
Grades
get yeah, they'll do enough to be able to pass, but then after when basketball season, say for
Oh no, we
middle
all
school,
no. Well, let me put this in there. Our mentoring program was 365 days a year. It wasn't just during the season. So if you were messing up during the off season, well, you weren't going to get any run during the season, because with our AAU program, we were doing games out of what would be considered the normal AAU season. So you didn't practice, you didn't go places where we go when we went out for movies or dinner. You didn't go. So we kept the hammer. We
well,
kept the oh, believe me, we kept
and,
the hammer.
and that's a good thing that you always have to have something for them to look forward to,
Yeah,
because in some cases it may be only that 3 or 4 months that they'll
right,
do what they need to do, and then
right.
they'll slip off. Even at
Yep,
the high school level,
yep.
they'll get enough grades to participate, then they'll start slipping. So obviously you have to have conversations with them to find out other things or interests that they have to kind of keep them motivated. let's let's be honest. When people say, well, some people say, well, they should be learning anyway, they're in school, you shouldn't be giving them anything. But hey, don't adults get motivated by certain things at a job, that if they know that they could do this or do that, that there could be bonuses and raises and all that stuff? Gotta treat kids that same way. They need it. They need motivation, unfortunately.
Anything else, Greg? Oh yes,
Yeah, I had to cough. Sorry.
that's okay.
I just, having a little bit of insight into what my mom went through and some of the other things that maybe bring up another time. It just, I want to see everybody excel, and yet you hear like what Detroit schools, only 10% of the seniors are reading at grade level or something like that. Maybe 8th grade, not 12th grade, but and so there's something systemic wrong, and how do we fix that? We need to fix that.
Well, you would have to go in order, and I'm not sure what Detroit has going on. I know Detroit right now they're suffering an economic downturn, and they have been since about the late 1990s. They've lost a significant part of their tax base and population. So generally, when that happens, the people who are the glue, to that city, they're gone. The upwardly mobile people, the people who can afford to leave, they're gone. So that leaves the people with lesser ability, and that's generally what surfaces. Same thing with Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls used to be a bustling city. Urban renewal came through, economic downturn. All the people who can, they're gone. So you have, I would say, roughly about 30% of the city, it's actually gainfully employed. The rest are retired, and the other portion subsists on some type of government subsidies. It's what it is. You can't motivate people who are unmotivated. or you just no matter what you do, you can't motivate them because there's nothing for them to be motivated about. All their daily needs are taken care of. If they don't work, well, work. Oh, ooh, I'm just gonna sit here and drink my Kool-Aid and eat my pork chop sandwich and wait for the first of the month to come or wait for my SSDI check to come or whatever it is, and I'm gonna live. Now, wait a minute. I'm gonna survive because I don't consider that to be living, but they do. And that's something I said earlier. One person's level of comfort might be somebody else's basement. That person's basement could be the high for somebody. You never know.
Where do we start to fix that, guys? Where to me it seems like starting with the children and making a big deal out of scholastic success and lifting up within the community, within the schools, within the families, the kids that are putting in the time to learn the basics, to get their A's or B's or to excel scholastically, and lifting them up as examples for the other kids rather than, let's say, elevating the sports, the jocks.
Believe it
I
or
don't
not,
know. I'm just throwing
sorry, go
that
ahead.
out. No, sorry.
Believe it or not, it doesn't start with the kids. That's what we think. You know where it actually starts? It starts with the adults not having kids that they are not ready to commit to 100%. If we take parents or adults who aren't ready to commit to kids, and we could stop them from not having kids that they're not ready to parent, you will see an immediate impact for the good in academia. But because we don't, and because people are allowed to have kids regardless of whatever it is, it's generally those people who produce the kids who are the anchors that keep the school districts from doing well. Guaranteed. All you gotta do is look at the demographics.
So how do we go back to the
let me
core
throw
black families
throw
of the
something
late
else out there.
1950s?
You
How
can't.
do we get
Legislation
there, guys?
legislation has destroyed that. That is not coming back. That's a lot of what Kevin Samuels used to talk about. That's a lot of what the red pill content creators, at least the positive red pill content creators. There's some people out here who are masquerading as red pill content creators who are full of shit. I'm gonna be upfront and honest with that. So, but that pretty much is gone. This is why there's a rise of what they call, or what is termed as a passport bros, men who are going overseas to find women who are actually committed to family because they want to reestablish what it is that you're talking about. And until that happens, we're going to get more of the same. There's an adage: what you incentivize, you get more of. We see this with they're not even called illegal immigrants now. This is called migrants. So what you incentivize, you get more of. We didn't see this during the prior administration. They put a clamp on that. You ain't coming in here. You're not going to freeload off the taxpayer here, off the government. Go back home. Let your people take care of you. Now, all of a sudden, now we see a new administration in. All of a sudden, now we got a huge ordeal with sanctuary cities. You can't even do anything about that because that's their culture. We don't even know what their culture is. So now you bring in another culture into a culture where dysfunction exists at a root level. And you want to bring in another culture, we don't even know how this is going to look in 20 years. All we can do is say, you know what? I got to get a hold of mine and make sure mine are okay. It's the old adage in an airplane. When you ride in an airplane, the first thing they tell you when cabin pressure is lost, secure your own mask.
Yeah. And I think that's big when you look at the community aspect, because again, we live in transient communities, that there's no consistency. So you have people in and out where when we grew up, most of us stayed pretty much uh, somewhere 5, 10 years, may lived in the same house, apartment, or whatever. So parents got to know each other. You became a community. You had gatekeepers of the community and things of that nature. So nobody missed a beat. And we always talk about the importance of first to start with family, then it filters out into community, into schools. Well, if families are all over the place because you have families, then they split, and then one person, well, I can't afford to live here, and they keep bouncing from one place to another, and you get two or three or four people doing that. Uh, this is this caused dysfunction. So this is how neighborhoods get destroyed because people don't know the normal neighborhood norms. Like sometimes those things are established on neighborhoods that like, oh, we don't tolerate this. You can have block clubs up the ass if you want to, but and those is usually like private meetings and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But all it takes again is one or two neighbors that's dysfunctional that can destroy one neighborhood. Then you get a couple more. Then you get a couple more. Then you get an influx at the school that they're coming into schools. And all of a sudden, a handful of people is wrecking shop for a place that was good or a neighborhood that was good, where people say, I used to could just leave my door open. I could leave my window open at night and get the breeze in. Now you have people coming through that like what's going like
Yeah.
and this is things that we can't prepare for because also it's government that's putting these people. Oh, we give you vouchers. Oh, you live wherever you want to live, and they come there, but they don't change their mindset. They
Right.
don't. They don't change their mindset. It's almost like you have to have like like someone that's going to be like a counselor or someone to say, hey, you're getting this place over here, but this is how this neighborhood rolls. So you guys need to be indoctrined to what they do over here. And no, it's just a mess in a lot of places. I don't. Some places is out of reach that not everybody can just move there, and they have their group and they kids. They do whatever they do fine, but then this other mediocre like police like for middle level people and stuff like that was decent, but all of a sudden things change because of government programming and again the transient population, people moving in and out. You don't know who this person is, who that person is. Three people that lived in that same thing within a same dwelling within a year and a half, and you just can't keep up with people. So it's hard now.
Yeah.
Didn't used to be like that.
I'm going to make a prediction, guys. Imagine the impact having 2 or 3 children in each of the classes in a um, grade school that don't speak English is going to have the scholastic impact that's going to have on those classrooms, because we're about to see that the programs
Yeah.
that you're talking about. What is it in Harlem? They're clearing out one of the grade schools to house immigrants,
Mhm.
and I just want to scream when I hear stuff like that.
Yeah.
Betraying our own. We're all Americans first, right? So
Yeah, and we know,
That's real.
we know that's coming, but yet and still, they're coming, and you can't deny them. That's the thing, you can't deny them. They're coming in unless you got a special program type of school that they don't allow people to come in once
Right.
their enrollment is set, and that the kids that's in there, those kids, those that school, those are the cushy jobs that people like. I ain't got to leave. I'm gonna stay here forever. Uh,
Yep.
some of the top tier teachers try to get into those places because they don't want to deal with the behaviors. Then you have the other schools that you, like you said, Greg, but you have people that can't speak it, but you have budget cuts. You don't have the same personnel. You got teachers dealing with that. Well, he can't really speak English. We don't have enough para educators or teachers assistants. So I'm in here. I got two ESOL students. I got 10 kids with IEPs. These kids got behavior bit plans. I got 3 or 4 kids that really want to learn, but I have to handle all of this by myself. And I don't get paid shit, really. So
Well, and it ain't going to happen, right? There's, my mom would work her 8 or 10 hours at school and then 3 or 4 hours a night at home in order to get all the things that she had to do. And she was like second or third grade. And so these teachers that are going to have special needs kids and non-English speaking kids and stuff, the government's going to have to come up with money for those paraeducators, or the
Oh, trust me,
classrooms
the
are
money,
just going to crash.
the money's there. The money is not an issue. And when I say the money is not an issue, let me explain that. The federal spending was $83.97 billion. I'm sorry, wait a minute. For education, that's what the spending was. That is less than 1% of the federal budget. To put it another way, if the U.S. made one less, or the federal government bought one less B-2 bomber, they could double the amount that was spent on education. So the money's not an issue. It's just a matter of where they want to cut budgets at. And this is something I talked about earlier, is budgetary constraints. What is the union going to say? The money's there. It's just the willingness to spend it. And as long as America, maintains what's been termed as the military industrial complex, and more the focus is on control as opposed to the definition that Gavin gave earlier in terms of education, that's what we're going to get. Like I said, like it's been said, the more you incentivize something, the more you get of it. If this country was to incentivize, let me say this. If this country was to incentivize having an 85% or better cumulative GPA from kindergarten to graduation, and you got tax rebates, tax credits, government free loans to go to college, I guarantee you academic rates would skyrocket, because that means money. There was I had a John Raynard, who's on my friends list, spoke to something like this, and I wish I could actually break it down the way he did. He's in finance, is what he does, and it was so brilliant that I'll have to go back and dig it up, and I'll post it in the Counselor's Corner for people who might be interested in reading about his perspective on education and how to possibly fund it for people who are interested in that particular thing. But yeah, money's not a problem with the U.S. in terms of academic pursuits. It's just a willingness to spend it.
okay.
I'm going to shut up so you can close down, David.
Oh no, there's no problem. I don't mind you. I just know that these conversations can go on and on. Like I was when I spoke at the top of the hour, when I had said I had was a part of a live panel, facilitated a conversation with adults about being single and all that stuff. Can go on and on. There's so much to it that the only thing you could do is try to stay consistent with the conversations, and that's the one thing we have done is try to stay consistent. Where a lot of people pop in, they doing something, 3 4 weeks they gone, and or they have something, then you're like, oh, when y'all coming back live? Oh, yeah, I got to look at my schedule. We try to stay consistent with our message and with our madness and whatever comes with it. But we're here for the most part, and I think that's so key. So we'll never be able to get all these conversations apart. But one of the things I always said that we need to keep having these conversations.
Yep.
We need to have live conversations.
Yep.
And sometimes it don't always have to be, especially when you're talking about the community and all that. It doesn't have to be like sort of like controlled by politicians or anything. It could be just people. Hey, let's get together. Let's have little icebreaker things. Let's talk about certain issues that we think is the problem. You can filter a lot of different discussions and activities based on certain things for people to get together. We always just usually get together for the wrong reasons or other things, but it's time for people to start reprogramming things that they want to do and say, hey, let's try this. Let's try to connect, because I think a lot of things also is the lack of connectivity with people is causing a lot of the issues. But another discussion for another time.
Yeah.
So we'll have some closing comments and we're going to get up out of here.
I posted the link to the video I was talking about with American exceptionalism in the chat. I'll also post it in the counselor's corner as well. Like I said, it's very profound. It's very, very prophetic. And I really don't have anything to add. I'm grateful to Gavin and Greg, our Midwest and West Coast panel members. Greg and I always have a correspondence. So the questions he's asking are nothing new to me and may be new to people who are listening for the first time on the panel members. We always, and we tell people, come in, ask the questions, because you might be thinking the same thing that somebody else is thinking, but they don't know how to phrase it because they think there's going to be some backlash from people. There is no such thing as a bad question when it comes to this topic, because nothing's off the table. Everything is on the table in terms of discussion. And like I always say, when it comes to discussion, are you adding a brick to the wall or are you removing a brick from the wall? Today, Greg is taking off a few bricks, so the conversation flows. The dialogue is there. Questions are asked. Information is given. All right? And as always, growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
Greg, anything you want to close out with?
Sure. I apologize if my voice waffles. I'm not used to talking in a format like this, so it's a little tough. I will say that I worry about my Black brothers and sisters. I worry about what's happening. We've touched on it a little bit tonight. One of the numbers I've heard when Herb's talking about the money for education is that caring for the immigrants that have been incentivized to come into our country this next year is supposed to cost a minimum of $458 billion. And you talk about that money is going to come, and we're seeing cuts being made to police budgets, to education budgets, to things like community centers and parks and recreation programs and stuff that are key to all of our kids, but I think especially key to certain communities. So I worry for that, and I would also say that I'd like to have a discussion. Well, no, I'll talk to David later about that. Thank you for allowing me on, guys. It's been
Mhm.
enlightening.
Well, no problem. Just inbox me or Herb, and we take any suggestions of topics of discussion. We willing to try to discuss everything. Again, and I'll close out. We're not experts in anything. I've been in education for 30 years. I'm no expert, but I have my opinion on certain things. I've been around to give feedback on certain things. But this, we all got to work together. There, none of us is in our own isolated bubble that we say, "Oh, that shit right there doesn't even matter," because I'm here. No matter what, you're gonna be impacted by something. Impacted by. So even in your communities, whether it's business that closes or violence or crime or something, we're all impacted by some of the similar issues. Maybe not all, but overall, it does somehow filter into all of our lives, even if it's not touching us directly. So we just got to keep at it, keep having conversations, keep trying to do what we can do to help out, keep trying to keep our kids strong mentally because it's going to be a battle. It's going to be different. Things are um, going to change, and you have to monitor that. And one of the things I could say, and I'm gonna close it out with that, and we talked about online learning and different things like that. Well, parents have to be a part of that too. And one
Yeah.
of the things some of them may not be comfortable with. I don't know nothing about no computers. I know how to use my phone. I don't know how to get on to that. I don't. They have to show me this or that. Sometimes, again, when we talk about showing them that you willing to learn, sometimes you may have to take classes or do something different to learn about something to keep up. We all got to put in work, and one of the points was education is, I forgot how it worded. Education is like kind of a forever process. It is. It's always new stuff. You always got to learn to do this to try to get ahead, and that's where we at. So again, this conversation ain't over with. We just tackled the points that we tackled tonight, but we know it's gonna keep coming up because education is, and that's one of my core subject talking points. In my travels and podcasting and being an author, education. So it's gonna we're always going that's always gonna play a role in our conversation some way, somehow. So with that said, people, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Be well. Post stuff in the counselor's corner. Join the counselor's corner. Subscribe, like, and share this video. And we on to the next one. All right, good people. We out.
All right, people, take care.
Peace.
Good to see you. The woof. Ah.